The work that ACRO does is critically important for the industry. First of all, you think about what we do as an industry. We bring new medications to market faster than has been done in the past. So in my mind, ACRO is really critically important to be able to achieve that goals that all the members of ACRO have.
Our industry has been part of some of the most important innovations, really. Just less than 20 years ago, the advent of specialty drugs in particular. Those have changed the face of patient care in areas like cancer, HIV/AIDS, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. You think about diseases that frankly were fatal and that now are really frankly chronic diseases that we can manage and in some cases are able to cure.
And I think we've established ourselves as key partners, particularly over the last 20 years. I think it would be fair to say that the first 20 years we were additional arms and legs for pharma companies when they needed a bit of extra resources. I think increasingly over the last 20, we've added the brain, we've added the head to that, and we're a much more, intellectual partner.
We see this growth of moving from site focus to patient focus, and a lot more of what can we do to help patients participate in clinical trials and move forward with really collecting a lot more data and patient centricity in clinical trials today.
In the technology space, we've seen more electronic options that not only enable real-time data for decision-making, but also make trials more patient-centric, such as telemedicine, e-consent, and direct-to-patient shipments and services. Anything that we do as an industry to make trials more accessible and convenient for patients is a win for our pharma and biotech customers, and even more importantly, for the patients who are awaiting new therapies.
We're in a really exciting time now and into the future, where the technology is flowing so quickly, we need to adopt it, we need to bring it to the patient, and we need to continue to bring the medicines faster and faster to patients so they have hope for things that they didn't have hope for in the past.
The benefit of the membership with ACRO for Signet is the involvement in industry-wide issues, and you get to work with your either CEO or other executive peers. So just that ability to share ideas with other people, it's always been a great input for me as a leader.
I think one thing for me that's really unique about our industry association is that it is so inclusive in terms of both including service organizations as well as technology organizations. And when you harness that kind of brain power together, all with a focus on really improving drug development for the benefit of patients, a lot of innovation can happen, but you can also present a unified voice very efficiently and effectively.
Being middle of the digital transformation, ACRO will have a much bigger role to play this decade in aligning all the stakeholders, including policymakers, regulators, sponsors, everyone, with the digital transformation of the clinical research.
It's important to have an association such as ACRO advocating for the unified and centralized clinical research approaches. And that's at the heart of the ACRO mission, helping to ensure that worldwide standards for clinical research are established and maintained to improve the quality of biomedical research.
Over the last 20 years, and especially in the recent times, ACRO has served to unify and amplify the members' voices with regulators and policymakers alike.
And you think about the ability for us to share our knowledge across the industry, share our knowledge with our clients, but also share our knowledge with regulators and be able to influence policy decisions that are being made across the world, and the ability for us to put out industry-wide statements that represent the way we can change or improve the process of clinical trials.
When you think about advancement and contribution, really has been related to the pandemic. Our entire industry worked to really obviously support the development of vaccines and treatments for COVID-19, but also to keep all other forms of clinical research moving and progressing. And I think that part really is probably one of the unsung triumphs of the pandemic, was to be able to keep advancing research across rare disease, gene and cell therapy, and oncology, in addition to all the work that we were doing on COVID-19.
The pandemic fostered an incredible democratization of real-world data than ever before, and in fact engendered an impressive collaboration across the clinical research ecosystem.
COVID has forced us to really start to take a lot of technologies that have been around for a while and actually use them for COVID trials and non-COVID trials so that we can actually continue with clinical trials over the last 2 years.
COVID presented an opportunity. But when you look back a couple of years, many of the changes and the advances that we were making trials more accessible to patients, that was really beginning. So I think that the COVID crisis really brought those into being much sooner. So it really accelerated all of the opportunities that we had that were already really underway.
If you think about the pandemic, obviously it was a game changer for everybody. The entire world had to live differently, react differently, and in the clinical trials realm, it's really no different for us. But for a long time, we had talked about things like decentralized trials and remote monitoring, for example. And once the pandemic came, it was this huge impetus. There was no choice. So let's do something that we've been thinking about for a very long period of time. And it's tremendously increased over the last 2 years. You've seen wide acceptance, really.
Through the disaster of the pandemic, everyone also had the chance to see firsthand the real-life impact of science, research, and drug development. The world has had a really front seat to the drug development process, following along and becoming more familiar and better educated about life-saving advances.
The entire world is aware of our ability to bring out COVID-19 vaccines and therapies to the market in months versus years it used to take. Post-pandemic, I truly believe we will be able to replicate some of the solid lessons we have learned for other therapeutic areas.
I joke that for the first time ever, I think that my family and my mother know actually what I do every day and what I do for a living. But beyond that, I think that it's given the public as a large a peek into our world and into the process, how scientists work every day for years to identify these therapies.
But when I think about public awareness to clinical trials that COVID brought to so many people, I really think about diversity first. I think we went from diversity in clinical trials being something that people were in the industry were focusing on and really trying to improve. But now everybody in the world became a patient, and everybody in the world became aware that we have issues with our diversity in our clinical trials. And we have to change that.
With billions of potential combinations of clinical trial inputs, the future of drug development will become increasingly more agile. Meaning, we'll design our studies in the most optimal way to accelerate recruitment as fast as humanly possible, ensure the greatest level of compliance and efficacy in our execution, with the aim to produce the highest quality data. So this will mean that some studies will follow a more traditional site-based approach, while others will follow a more new order, decentralized clinical trial path. But more often than not, we're going to be using a combination of traditional and decentralized methodologies to achieve our goals.
The future, I think, is bright because we've been able to apply technology through this pandemic that really, we probably would have taken us another 5 to 10 years to do. So in that way, the COVID pandemic's been a huge opportunity and a huge benefit, I think, to drug development going forward. I think technology, we stand on the cusp of a huge technological revolution, whether it be in natural language processing, in artificial intelligence, in virtual reality, in cloud computing. There's a number of aspects there that really move us forward and I think give us the opportunity to develop drugs in a much more effective and efficient manner going forward.
I have been humbled to be a part of this industry, actually going on 30 years. We're seeing a convergence of clinical care and clinical research, and in particular, how to bring those trials directly to patients in the communities. And of course, we're all very focused on diversity and being able to provide the ability to deliver decentralized trial services right in the community and helping to ease that burden on our investigators and patients.
I'm most excited about clinical research and thinking about the increased impact on patient healthcare, which is why all of us are in this business to begin with. We think about some of the innovations and trials and the impact that has on patient outcomes. And then all of the trial innovations and technologies that ACRO member companies and technology companies bring to bear to accelerate that drug development process to get those therapies to benefit patients faster. That's what I'm most excited about.
I'm excited about what we do. I'm excited about the ability to participate in drug development across all therapeutic areas and to be able to look at these unmet needs with our pharmaceutical sponsors and figure out how to get it all done faster and impact mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters. That's what gets me up in the morning. I'm excited about the prospect of being able to have that impact on public health.
Prior to the pandemic, we were focused obviously on modernizing clinical research. Now we're in that. We're really making those changes that are really focused on, I think, a more patient-centric approach. And what I mean is by bringing clinical research into patient communities, really thinking about clinical research with more optionality for patients. So I think we're going to see an exciting period of development for clinical research organizations and technology companies where we are partnering together even more than in the past, where we're bringing innovation together more quickly, and where we're partnering and being a voice to regulators to make sure that we're working together to bring clinical research to patients more quickly. So I think it's an exciting time to be in drug development.